Victory Monday after Rivalry Week. Wow. I don't know why I'm saying wow. Seems to happen every single year. But here we are on bright and early on Monday, December 2nd. We are the Sons of Saturday. This is the Sons of Saturday podcast. Pat and BRM coming at you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. This was probably the most fun podcast that we did last year in terms of game reviews. It was certainly the most fun I had watching a game. This year, Virginia Tech beats UVA 37-17 on ACC Network at night. Again, Pat, how are you doing, my man?
Good morning. Back in Charlotte after a fun, family-filled Thanksgiving weekend. And I agree with you, Billy Ray. It was probably the toughest get up for a game as a fan I felt in a really long time. But at the end of the day, it's rivalry week and these guys get up for it. And we saw fun football on Thursday. We saw really fun football on Friday. We saw a lot of more fun football on Saturday. And then we even got to see Josh Allen dominate in an absolute snow globe last night. So it was did we deserve this? I think we did. You were saying, was it you who said that we didn't deserve that good of football this weekend? I think we all deserved it. It was fantastic.
It's almost like a chirp, but it also is the truth. Like, this season has been overwhelmingly disappointing. It's been challenging. It's been, it's been what the season has been. You've listened to us talk about it all year. And Virginia Tech has a ton of work to do leading up to kickoff in Atlanta against South Carolina. And we're going to talk about all of that in another podcast. It's just not the time or place for it. But UVA's ability and dedication to, no matter what the situation is with Virginia Tech, to come out, and it's not just like to lose the game, but look physically not up for the challenge every single year, for the exception of 2019. Like, we all kind of know that's the case, but it is, at least for me, every single year when I watch it play out, shocking how far the distance is of two teams in the same conference that have recruited on the same level pretty much and finished with the same record pretty close every single year. It's just stunning to me.
I know Mike McDaniel put it out. He said, I'm not even trying to troll, but when people ask me if I think Virginia will beat Virginia Tech, the answer is always no. It took one of Virginia's best quarterbacks in school history in 2019 to beat Virginia Tech, and they still almost didn't win that game. Hokies have won 19 of the last 20 and 23 of the last 25. We got Anthony Calandria to transfer. We kick it off with some coups.
Yeah, let's kick it off with some coups. I'll read one from Oswald. I really like this one. A time to reflect. Season began with a whimper, ends with a great pop. Well done. Like that.
Pete McGee. Pop go the Wahoos. Lane exclaimed with Hokie pride. Maroon to the moon.
Can I just say a couple of things? Number one, the maroon uniforms looked like just elite on television. Like, these, I know we've said it a bunch of times that we've played games this year. The uniforms really look exquisite, and they looked fantastic.
They look so much better when we win. I don't really care for them very much when we lose.
Very true. And it just has to be said, we should do this now. All week, I'm like, man, I really don't know how many people are going to be there. I don't know. It's going to be cold. We're not that good. They're not that good. Holiday break. 80%, 70%. How full is the stadium going to be? And leading up to the game, I'm watching the pregame hype intro video, and ACC Network is playing overhead shots of Syracuse from 2 years ago, Boston College, Clemson. And I'm like, all right, they're just waiting as long as they can to get to this overhead shot of Lane because there's going to be some open sheets. As soon as the broadcast started, jaw on the floor. Like the fact that this stadium was that packed basically looked like a sellout. It may have been. I personally could not believe how many people showed up, and I was so proud of how many people showed up. I don't really have any other words for it.
It was, I think, jaw-dropping is a good word to describe it. I've never seen this fan base this dejected, yet still showing up. It truly is a testament to how incredible our fan base is and how much the UVA game means to our fan base as well. And, you know, personally, I was looking at that and I was like, wow, I feel like I've committed a crime against my fanhood because I wasn't there. And this is the first time I missed the Virginia game since 2011, exclusive of COVID in 2020. And, you know, part of me definitely felt wrong for missing it. It was going to be a lot to get back for it. I had a flight back to Charlotte in the morning from Newark on Saturday, and knew it was going to be a lot to get up to Blacksburg for an 8 p.m. kick in the 20s, and didn't figure out, you know, a place to stay or anything. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to sit out this year. Watch from
you know, Pat, I know it's hurting you to have this dialogue here. I'm proud of three things from Saturday. I'm proud of our fan base for showing up. I'm proud of our Hokies for showing up. And I'm proud of you for being an adult about this decision. Flying back on Saturday, driving up with no place to stay would have been a diabolical move. And either way, jaw-dropping from the fan base. It was really, really, really awesome. And I think a lot of people thought that we were like we're never in the let's play negative dialogue game. That's not what we do. I actually was really curious to see how many people were going or were not going and what the rationale was. And as I was reading the replies there, and as I believe it was Harsit sent over a picture of the SeatGeek listings, I was like, this is gonna be ugly. Like this, like I do not anticipate close to a full stadium. And it looked great. It looked great all game too. Like it looked awesome. It really, shout out.
Really,
PB was even trying to rationalize it. He was like, I don't know, man. If people wear like puffer jackets, does it look fuller? Like, does it give you an extra 10%?
You know what it looks like too? It looks like it's Maroon Effect. I think everyone's got their big maroon jackets or like a big dark jacket, and you know, just you could tell how cold it is from the shots, even without being there. You know, just based on how bulky everyone looks, or even just the lighting in the air. Yeah, I was surprised too. One of my buddies here in Charlotte, big Hokie, and he was asking me if I was going, and I was like, dude, I'm taking a stand here. And he was like, I don't know if I should be disappointed in you or if I'm proud of you, but he was there with his family. So really, really, really excellent job. I know I got off a tweet about the field rushing or whatever that was. You know what? Why don't we just do this every single time we beat Virginia? There's a little party at the midfield logo. I think we can institute a new tradition there. It has happened several years over the past few years. We've never seen it in Lane, but maybe it could be just hey, we beat UVA again. This is our postseason party wrap up at the 50.
I'm shocked that you have arrived at that. I thought you were going to take a completely different tone on the field rushing. Well done, Sam Jesse. It absolutely was not a tradition, but we can call for it to be one. Look, if you told me before the game that the people were going to rush the field, I'd have been like, tough look for everybody. It's been a long year. It's certainly not the fans' fault that the season is wrapped up the way that it has. And I kind of forget, I don't want to say every year, but we've been in this position for so many years, so I will say every year, how good it does feel to end the season with an ass whooping. It does not justify or remove us from needing to make changes moving forward. But it does give you some serious juice when we get there. But let's get to the game.
Well, last thing. Seniors got to rush the field. Seniors who had never seen us beat Virginia, never seen us play Virginia at home. Not a single student there got to see us play Virginia at home in 2018. So
Great point.
A nice ode to them to cap off their career in Lane Stadium. I guess 1, 2, 3, 4. If you were a senior at this game, you might have ended your college career in Lane Stadium the same way you started it, rushing the field after we beat Carolina in that game right after COVID in 2021.
That is a fun fact. So where did we watch? Where did we tailgate? I mean, you just heard we watched it from the couch. I watched mine in Warrenton. I watched it with Ed, Carly, Jay, Chad, and Anna. But I think just for this question specifically, this weekend of football was one of the better 2-day stretches of college football I think I've ever enjoyed in my life. This rivalry weekend seemed especially awesome. A lot of one-score games, a lot of fights, a lot of flag planting, a lot of upsets. This has been such a great college football season, and this week lived up to the tone that college football has set the entire year.
I think you had not really that good football on Thursday. The Giants, Cowboys, they play the Cowboys.
I don't watch the NFL.
It was such a horrible football game. There were so many turnovers. There were so many flags, not good quarterback play. But then you had the Friday slate, and you had Joe Tessitore calling the Brent Key versus Kirby Smart Bowl. Good, what is it? Good, clean fashion hate. Oh my gosh. I got to tell you, I am normally pro Joe Tessitore, but man, it was a tough.
He was awful.
It was a tough.
He was
listen.
awful.
Honestly,
he was awful.
I think it was kind of a tough listen across the country in some of these big games. I didn't love Tom Brady on Thursday. I think there's a ways for him to go. I think he's animated. He's just a little too intense. I do think his perspective is very enjoyable, but I do think he's a little over the top intense. It's dude, just got to chill out a little bit. I do think it's there. We just got to dig for it a little bit. Joe Tess, kind of just getting a little too Gus Johnson on me on Friday night. Definitely had, in my opinion, a Georgia lean from Joe Tess.
There's no opinion. There was absolutely a lean, and he was saying over and over again the exact same thing. It was it was an awful listen. It's not even like a debate. It was terribly bad.
And this format of overtime is horrible. Absolutely awful. We cannot be doing the whole 2-point conversion thing at the start of start of the second overtime.
Start of the third overtime. It's bad. I don't think anybody is pro it. I just think that we've seen it play out way more than probably people anticipated, but it's bad. Really bad.
And then I must say, West Durham is so great. What you dislike in the Gus Johnson, who was literally almost crying about Michigan trying to plant the flag, by the way. This is so unsportsmanlike. Why did you guys have to do that? It's dude, are you serious? This is your profession. This is a rivalry game, and you're crying because one team who came into Ohio Stadium again wants to plant the flag? Let them have their fun. Let them enjoy their rivalry win. If you go into an opposing stadium and beat the hell out of the host, you deserve to plant the flag. If you don't want them planting your flag, don't let them beat you on the field. Gus Johnson, come on, man. But West Durham, 10 out of 10. Just ACC football through and through. West Durham on the ACC Network call. I love it. It was 2 weeks in a row with Wes. So if you're watching at home 2 weeks in a row, you got to hear Wes. So tip of the cap to him.
Wes does a great job. Couple other notes. Syracuse over Miami. Finally got bit in the butt. It's been a long time coming. It really
Suck
has.
it, Miami.
It's been a long time coming. Shane winning over Clemson was fantastic, and what was an overall amazing football game. And I have to tip my cap to ESPN. They did an amazing job broadcasting the Texas A&M entrance in Aggie Land. I thought that was incredible. If you haven't seen it, look it up. But anything else?
I did take this game in Manhattan. So I stayed one more day, flew home to Charlotte yesterday. LaGuardia, 10 out of 10 also. But watched with Aaron and the Raffertys at Shades of Green, which is the Manhattan Hokies meetup bar. This place is absolutely electric.
Looked awesome.
Really fun spot. Never had been before. And we're probably midway through the first quarter. It's probably maybe like 20 Hokies there. And I look over at this guy wearing like the Bruce Arians hat. And I see his side profile. And I'm like, wait a second. And I yell out, Jeremy, it's the Hokie pharmacist, Jeremy Counts, is standing at the Shades of Green bar in Manhattan. I said, dude, what are you doing here? And he says, Pat, what are you doing here? And we consumed lots of football together for the next several hours. That was hilarious, and I did not expect to run into Jeremy Counts in New York City. He's there up for some pharmacy stuff. And then Ann Templeman and her husband were also there. So I was like, holy crap. This is a small world, and I love seeing you guys all up here. A lot of fun up there. My guy Jonah as well, but we had an incredible time and probably one of the most fun game watches I've ever been to. I had been on a 6-game losing streak at Virginia Tech game watching bars, so it's really nice to snap that streak, especially over the Hoos.
It was certainly the most fun I've had for 4 quarters watching Virginia Tech this football season. Getting into the game here, 34 seniors walked on Saturday night, which seems like a huge number. I can't remember the last time we had that many. I haven't kept like a running total of every single year, but 34 seems like a lot. I know there are a lot of guys on that list that have some more eligibility with the transfer portal. That's a little bit different. And I spoke about it at the top, like the tone of this football game. It's just stunning every single time this game is played. The only play that I watched and I said, oh man, like UVA came to play was literally the first game of the first play of this game. They come down on kickoff, pop our guy, got the ball on the 8-yard line. No problem. Pop Watson takes him 90 yards. But again, it's not just the fact that we win the games. It's the fact that it's literally an ass whooping the entire game, every single time. It literally compares to, at least for these last however long I've been following it, it's not even really like compelling. It's almost like wrong to call it a rivalry because of how it goes. I'm really not trying to be like over the top here, but it just, as soon as the game started, it was almost like, oh, okay, so we're just going to crush them again. They didn't look like they were up for it. They didn't look like they were interested in it. They didn't look like they cared to try to win the football game. And we looked like we wanted to crush them. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I feel like there was a dichotomy here between our guy and their guy, and their guy was Anthony Calandria. Our new guy is Pop Watson. And you had a guy who just wants to be there, who buys in. It's the most confident guy in the room, who really led this football team on Friday night. That was Virginia Tech football. And you had a guy on the Virginia side who had been an emerging stud, a fun guy to watch. And, you find out he's not starting. Calandria is not getting the nod. It's Musket. And then Calandria hits the portal, the day after. We're like, all right, well, we love this Pop guy. He's awesome. UVA, they don't even know what they're doing. They don't have a quarterback, and I don't know what their coaching situation is going to look like going into 2025 with Calandria leaving here too. So just another institution of dominance in Lane Stadium by Virginia Tech. UVA has not won since 1998. And another 365 days with this shiny cup.
Did it seem like since 1998? I don't know if you said at home. At home since 1998.
At home,
okay.
At Lane Stadium. Did it seem like there was a UVA slant on the broadcast at all, or like why did they interview that guy on the sideline for like an entire quarter?
I don't think there was. I mean, I thought the broadcast was fine. They did interview him for a really long time. I didn't really understand it. I don't know if he's like a captain for them or something. He was injured. I don't know. I also don't know what you say if you're a UVA football player and they're asking you what the rivalry means to you when you literally never win.
Apparently he was on the 2019 team, but I mean, it was quite some time ago. Makes sense.
Some other word salad. I don't have anything else. Let's get into the presser here. Jalen Lane we're about to talk about Pop. But he said in the post-game press conference, if you know Pop, you know that he's one of the most confident guys in the world. So we have the utmost trust in him, and there was no doubt in my mind he was going to play like he did. I got to tell you, there's like three pieces of the Pop Watson experience that we need to talk about. It is the way he played. It is how funny he was, like after the game, during the game. But also, I think the most important part was just the joy and the confidence that he played with. And we've talked about it all year. You're the hammer or you're the nail. And from Jump Street, he spoke, walked, talked, played like somebody who wasn't making their first start in a freezing cold game, in a rivalry game, in front of a soul. I was stunned by his performance. I really was. And not stunned because I didn't think he was good. I was stunned at like how put together he looked. It did not look like a sophomore making his first start at all. And I was really impressed with Pop Watson.
Yeah, just oozes confidence, and it just feels something about him just feels different. You know, like his celebrations, like he's like bumping the ref when he scores a touchdown. You know, he's walking around like with the Commonwealth Cup on his head in the post-game celebration. And Coach Pry, you know, made some comments in the press conference, just really has a good knack for avoiding the rush and moving around in the pocket. What I saw from Pop Watson was just quick decision making that we have not seen out of quarterback play this season, or really in a long time. I know, Billy, I think you made a comment about him being probably the best decision maker in that role since Gerard Evans. I mean, just from this sample size, you know, what we've seen so far, it's he takes the snap, 1, 2, 3, out. Ball is out, or he's made his decision. You know, he throws the ball away, he hits open receivers, or he decides that he's going to run, and he runs with intent every single time he runs.
So on that note, my direct quote was, I've never had more, I don't think I've had more fun watching a quarterback play since Gerard. I would actually argue that Pop, and maybe this is just because we haven't seen it in a while, but his like, I don't really know how to describe this other than this. If you watch somebody dancing who's good at dancing, you can tell they're good at dancing. If they're awful at dancing, you can tell they're not good at dancing. His like processing speed and the way that he moved through his fakes, his progressions, his everything, he looked very polished, I guess, is what I'll say. It didn't look jerky. It didn't look uncomfortable. Like everything he did, every movement he had looked intentional, and it looked like he's done it a million times. So that's a testament to him. That's a testament to the quarterback coach. That's a testament to a lot of things to get to the point where our third string quarterback looks not only competent, but dominant in a game like this. So some statistics for you. Virginia Tech is now 19-1 since UVA joined the since joining the ACC. Excuse me. They're 23-2 in the last quarter century. That's from Bill Roth's late hits. Virginia Tech scored touchdowns on both of their possessions starting the halves. So they got the ball on the 10, drove it all the way down. And I believe UVA turned it over on their first drive coming out of halftime. They scored there. We also had 2 drives inside of like 3 minutes to score before halftime with that long play to Jalen Lane. And then we got 3 more after the Jalen Jones pick. We also, praise God, he does exist, and he loves the Hokies. We won the third quarter. I mean, like all halftime, all first half. I'm like, dude, still got that third quarter. Third quarter's right around the corner. And it wasn't great. It wasn't perfect. They did move the ball a little bit more effectively. But Virginia Tech won the third quarter. Granted, 10-8, but baby steps. We did win the third quarter, which is huge. We actually won every quarter in this football game. So, but the third quarter is something to be excited about because that has been Disasterville for Virginia Tech this year.
Quarterback play was big in this game. Yards per pass. Tony Muskett, 4.9 yards per pass. William Watson III, 12.1 yards per pass. You know what we love, Billy Ray? We love efficiency. You want to talk through more efficiency from this offense?
Yeah, 458 yards in the day. It was the second highest yards per play in the season at 7.5. We had 204 yards passing and 204 yards rushing, 254 yards passing. Sorry, the coffee is still getting in here. We had 4 plays of 20 plus yards. Pat, we did not turn the football over at all. We really didn't even put the football at risk. There was one play, I can't remember who it was, if it was Aiden Green or somebody else, but there was a holding the ball with one hand running into the end zone situation. But that was like the closest we came to turning the football over. Really impressive.
Also led in time of possession, 31 minutes, 18 seconds to 28:42 for Virginia. What else did you see from Pop? I know he came out hot, which is also one of the things that we love about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was an instant uptick in rhythm, vibes, decision-making, and swagger. First drive, he had the long play to Felton, which was great. I mean, we saw multiple long balls in this game, which we have not seen all year, but we knew it was in there. So what I also loved is on this first drive, like he would go to the side, he'd be like pushed out of bounds on the UVA sideline, and he spoke to everybody. He was getting in dudes' faces. He was shaking his head. He was, bumping people on his way back out. Like he was bringing the business every single time that he was on the sideline, which I absolutely loved. He could have ran for 2 yards and he would get up and he's doing like the money celebration sign. He was so entertaining to watch, winning and making plays aside. So I love that. He finishes 14 of 21 with 254 yards passing and 1 touchdown, 11 carries and 48 yards and a touchdown on the ground, and 85.4 QBR. And here's a stat that I love. And thank you, Kobe Crawford. I'm about to start calling Kobe Crawford Johnny on the spot because he's just great. He was 6 of 8 over the middle for 145 yards. So Pop Watson, I think he's a true sophomore or he's a redshirt freshman, comes in, and his ability to do the things that we have not done all year, convert on long balls, play with some confidence, and attack the middle of the field. He does all 3 of those things in his first career start on Rivalry Week. It was tremendous. This is the second most passing yards in a game that we have had all season behind the Vanderbilt game, which is just crazy to think about. Vanderbilt overtime game had those long explosive plays. This is the best we've looked at the quarterback position all year. And I don't think it's particularly close.
Yeah, I think Dave Scarangella did a great job too, describing Pop as a point guard where he's setting up other guys first and then was running when he had to. I mentioned this before. Every time he runs the ball, it's with intention because a guy of Pop's size has to really be intentional when he runs the football, just based on, he's a tinier guy, might not be as durable as a Kyron Drones or a Gerard Evans, but, he did have that 11-play, 90-yard touchdown drive to open up the game too. When was the last time we had a 90-plus yard touchdown drive, especially in a critical moment coming out of the locker room and kicking off the football game?
I haven't seen it look like this all year. And especially too, I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I love the point guard comparison, by the way, because for a guy to come in here and perform the way that he performed and also lead at the same time, having not that much familiarity is so impressive. UVA also did a tremendous job stopping the run in the first half. Like Tootin really kind of was, I don't want to say Tootin was struggling, but he wasn't having his typical football game until you got to the fourth quarter, end of the third quarter, where he broke a couple of loose. UVA was clearly keying in on the run game and was doing a really solid job. But that drive set the tone for the entire football game. And turning that page over to the running back, even though they did a great job in the first half, Tootin finishes with 18 carries, 124 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I absolutely love this football player. He's so fun to watch. You're not going to see him a ton on social media. He's not a huge quote machine. He just goes out there, handles his business. I love like the signature throttle it down to let the guy catch up to you, like right when you're crossing the goal line thing that he's been doing lately. I guess he started doing it in the UVA game. But talk about a guy who came here, and I remember when he came here, like as silly as this sounds, but I feel like everybody was saying this. Chris Tyree goes to UVA. He's one of the highest sought out recruits from Notre Dame. We get this guy, Bashal Tutin from NCA&T, and Bryce Chalkley really is the only guy. He looked up like his yards per carry, and he was like, this guy's pretty good. I mean, he might be okay. And it turns out he's one of the best backs that we've truthfully ever had at the school. And what a year and what a moment for that guy.
Really bummed his career in Lane Stadium is over because it was just a touchdown machine. 29 total touchdowns in his Virginia Tech career. We'll see, how he performs in a postseason opportunity, but really just excited for that young man of being able to take his talents to the next level, and proud that he was a Hokie. Really incredible evaluation by our coaching staff pulling him into this program over a year ago, and it's been an honor.
Newsflash, I fully expect him not to play in the bowl game at all. I don't think he should play in the bowl game. if there is a textbook definition of somebody who play all season, play hurt, do everything you can to put the film out there. And also, if you kind of read between the lines on his comments from the ACC network after the game, I would be shocked if he's at the bowl game. I know he'll be at the Senior Bowl, the Reese's Senior Bowl, wherever city that is. But man, if that is it, what a career and what a time. And I'll be looking forward to watching him on Sundays. The receivers finally popped off. We have waited for this all year long. We had longs of 66, 40, and 42. This is what we expected all year. I knew it was in there, and I knew it was going to come out at some point. I wish it came out earlier than right now. I've been quoting that Patrick Starr meme all year where it's like, it's okay, Rocky, you go when you want. So that meme has finally been vindicated. We went ahead and did it. Jalen Lane, 4 catches for 91 and a touchdown. Ollie Jennings, 2 catches for 51. Felton, 2 catches for 50. Could have had more. Had a couple of drops. But I'm sorry, we actually didn't have that many drops. We had a couple of overthrows. But receiving unit was really good. Kind of what I expected to see all year. We didn't, but I'm glad to see that it was in there.
Last year against Pittsburgh, Jalen Lane had a nice catch and run towards the north end zone. He did the same thing against Wake Forest. The call God that Antonio Brown quote tweeted. Hadn't seen that yet this year of a long, big play by Jalen Lane where he scores a touchdown into the north end zone. Finally got it. I've been waiting for that, and excited that Felton finally got loose on a deep ball as well. Looked like he was underthrown and still made the play, so that was good too. But yeah, a great effort all around. I know Steven and Benji contributed. You even had Nick Gallo getting some snaps at the end of the football game. I know he has been through hell and back, prior to last season getting hurt, or this season, I should say. And good to get a guy who's spent so many practices, so much time in the program. Nick Gallo, been around the program literally since he's been a kid, because his brother Eric graduated with Billy Ray. But glad to have him out there on senior day.
Awful injury luck. Awesome kid. Glad to see that he got a couple of snaps there. The offensive line was fantastic on Saturday. Much maligned this year. Came out and handled business. It was great. It was great. It was great. I don't have anything. I don't have anything negative to really say about anything. Flipping it over to the defense, we held UVA to 274 yards, which is their second lowest total on the year. Mansour Delane and Jalen Jones both had interceptions in this football game. The Musket situation was interesting, Pat. I know you wanted to talk about Musket. the dialogue from UVA was interesting because a lot of people were like, we should have been doing this all year. And I was like, man, if you guys are excited about this, you guys must have been really ass before because this is also bad. I thought we would see Calandria in the second half because their offense couldn't do anything. I was embarrassed for them again, but it was bad.
Tony Elliott, I didn't have them ready to play with the right level of discipline and execution. Emotionally, they were ready to play because last year we didn't have much emotion when we played in this game. But just execution. It's one or two plays. One or two plays can turn the tide in the game. We didn't have the right discipline. That's on me. I've got to go get that fixed. Just throwing his hands up in the air here. Another tough example of I don't even know if I was reading a little bit about this, how Tony doesn't really buy into rivalry games. I don't know if you saw anything about that, but
yeah, I did. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Go get it.
Interesting strategy. We talked about the turnovers. Virginia Tech forcing 1.9 takeaways per game, which is 11th in the country. We held UVA to 96 yards on the ground. Held them to a 52.8 completion percentage, second lowest on the year. And Malachi Fields, we talked about him coming into this game. He was held to his season low in receptions, finished with 2 catches for 20 yards. I loved following Jake Malisic throughout this game because you kind of got like a stream of consciousness from a UVA fan. And it's interesting. As if you're a UVA fan, Virginia Tech's quarterback, who was their third string quarterback, plays their best game of the season. Their defense plays the best that they've played all year. Our rushing defense is one of the worst in the conference. You held UVA to under 100 yards. The crowd's awesome. The team plays its best game of the year, and it's just Groundhog Day, like it has been every single year for UVA. It's got to be a painful exercise. I'm glad to be on this side of the fence.
Tony Muskett, his line was 19 of 36, 178, 2 interceptions, ran for 62, and had UVA's 2 touchdowns on 18 carries on the ground. You know who was great also? Our linebacker play. You had Caleb Woodson and Jaden Keller. What did they do? They led the team in tackles. No, it's a good week on defense when those two guys are getting close to triple or double digits. Woodson with 9, Jaden Keller with 8 tackles in the football game. And then I think it needs to be drilled in here. Tech has 23 takeaways on the year, 14 picks, 9 fumble recoveries. You know, you're almost getting 2 takeaways per game. It's so interesting to see a team that's 6-6, but be that high up in turnover margin. Where we are turning them over consistently. And again, 11th in the country. We are turning the ball over, but it just hasn't been there at certain points in the game where our defense hasn't been able to play complete football games. And, it's truly a bummer to see this result of the season with those numbers being towards our advantage here. I know we had a
real quick. I'm glad you said that because we are throwing a excitement fest here, and we're going to continue to do so. But I couldn't help myself after the game to say, like, I had all my happy thoughts, I had all my fired up thoughts, and then I said, man, to have the opportunistic team that we had this year, a top 5 conference pass rusher at worst, it's probably the best pass rusher in the conference, and a top 3 running back in the conference, maybe the best running back in the conference. And here we are at 6-6. We're going to talk about all of that. I'm just glad you resurfaced that because that was definitely a feeling that I had when the game was over.
I meant to say this at the beginning. You guys should read Dave Scarangella's Twitter article on Dulles District. Did a great job of just describing and creating metaphors for what this football game meant, whether it was Pop Watson being a point guard or this game being a 3-hour vacation away from the rest of the season. Clearly was a 3-hour vacation, and it's extended its way into Monday morning here as we talk about it and are still excited, but certainly have been brought down to earth a little bit when you look at the result. Virginia Tech lost to some good football teams this year. Every single team we lost to is bowl eligible, but it's always going to be looking at this 2024 campaign in the rear view as what could have been if some things were differently, if some decisions were made more quickly, or if some decisions were made to begin with. This team probably should have been an 8-4, even potentially closer to 9-3 football team. And we'll rehash that. I think Sunday or Monday after championship weekend is when we kind of want to talk about the holistic, comprehensive season review. But you did mention a top 5 ACC pass rusher. I think he's probably number 1, number 2. Coach Pry definitely thinks he's number 1. APR, he was unbelievable on Saturday.
He was. He had a sack on the first defensive play of the game on a flea flicker. I can't believe UVA started with a flea flicker. That was just next level stupidity. He finished with 3 sacks. The team had 5. We got to see a lot of APR stand up, rush, a little bit of like a radar situation. We saw him blitz the A gap. We saw him blitz the B gap. We saw him bull rush the offensive tackle. And Coach Pry alluded to this. They did everything they could to put as much film out as APR could have possibly wanted, almost like a showcase of sorts. And credit to APR for being developed this year. You go from being, I don't want to say a nobody, but you go from somebody who isn't really an impact player at Florida. You come back home and you turn into one of the best pass rushers in the conference. Quite honestly, one of the best seasons in Virginia Tech football history, following up last year where you get double-digit sacks and we're like, wow, this guy's really good. And then you put in one up it in this next season and you play just absolutely fantastic. It's another player that's going to be playing on Sunday. This team is littered with guys that can play on Sunday. He dominated. He dominated all year. He dominated his entire career here at Tech. And he has been so fun to watch. So fun to watch. And truly like a perfect textbook definition of what the transfer portal should and could be in a lot of cases, and a perfect thing to point to from the staff of, hey, you're a Virginia kid, you went to another school, came back home, your production was fantastic. I can't think of, Pat, you think of the transfer portal era and some of the most impactful players. 2 of them are on this team. And the only one who I really think comes close is Khalil Herbert. But APR and Bashal Tutin are as good of a transfer portal story as you're going to be able to tell. And it's the opposite. Bashal Tutin did the hardest thing that there is to do, going from a lower level and moving up into a higher level and continuing to be dominant. And APR moved from the SEC to the ACC. Both are going to play on Sunday, and everybody's got to feel great about
it. APR, I remember when he was either committed to Virginia Tech or was between Virginia Tech and Florida, ultimately chose Florida. But this is back when I don't remember the R being on his name. I just remember it being Antoine Powell. So then, I don't know when the Ryland got added or not, but I just remember him being Antoine Powell, and he was the guy that went to Florida. I was like, oh man, it's nice that we get this guy out of the portal. Hopefully it's a great eval and he has a good career in Blacksburg. All of a sudden, APR is APR. He's not Antoine Powell Ryland. He is APR, and the entire conference knows about APR, whether it's Taylor Tannenbaum or Eric McLean or Wes Durham just yelling APR every single time he makes a play in the backfield. 19 total tackles for loss on the season, 16 total sacks, 3 forced fumbles for APR. And I definitely think he should be up there in Defensive Player of the Year for the Atlantic Coast Conference. I know Coach Pry had some comments about that in the presser as well, thinking he should be considered for ACC DPOY. But again, really fortunate to have him come through Blacksburg on his way to the NFL.
Any notes on special teams before we turn the page?
John Love, another rock solid performance. Dr. Love hits from 44, 31, and 28. John Love finishes this season 5 of 5 from between 40 and 49 yards this year, which is extremely impressive. It says he was 15 of 17 overall. I know that he had 2 kicks blocked and then had a miss on that long Clemson attempt. So I'm not sure how blocked kicks work in the grand scheme of the stat sheet, but I think he was automatic all year and is definitely one of the most dangerous legs in the ACC, one of the best legs in the country. Shout out to him. Keep him around. Peter Moore, we love you. Thank you for your time in Blacksburg. Where I feel like Peter Moore has worn 25 more than anyone else on this roster. The dude is just rock solid on 4th down as our 4th down quarterback. So thank you, Peter. Looking forward to seeing you play one more time in the bowl game.
Love Peter Moore. I think it was 4 or 5 times this year he's worn 25. But in all, look, I have this dubbed as Alexa Play the Hits. Pop Watson talking cash. There's Alexa now. Alexa, that's enough. Please stop. Pop Watson talking cash all game was so fun to watch. The Gosnell fisticuffs. He didn't really have a touchdown or a big play, but he was in there to throw some bows, and I'm here for it. I mean, that guy hates you. That guy hates UVA. Him and Al Jones at the top of the I hate UVA leaderboards. It was I think he got the personal foul, and then the next play he was in there yucking it up again. And normally I'd be like, be smart. And I'm screaming at the TV, get him, Steven. It was awesome. I loved it. I love and will miss Steven Gosnell so much. He is just he's a great interview, great guy, fun football player. Another guy who wears his football team, and that's Steven Gosnell. And then again, Pop Watson, the post-game festivities. He's got the cup on his head. He's drawn on the board, and it's like the Zapruder film. Like everyone's like, "What's on the board? What's on the board? What's on the board?" And you're like, "It's got to be something like profane because they're not showing it. It's got to be crazy." It just said ball game. It was hilarious. It was so funny. Everybody's taking pictures with it. I love Pop Watson like so much. I cannot overstate how much fun I had watching him play and his command of the offense and his just overall vibe. And a lot of people were kind of worried about him being cold. I will remind you, he's from Massachusetts where it gets really cold. So, man, it was great. It was great beginning to end. Fantastic.
Just a typical Virginia Tech, Virginia game, honestly. 17 of the 22 losses to Virginia Tech over the past 25 years from Virginia have been by double figures. So when we beat UVA, we beat UVA. Virginia Tech has entered its rivalry game needing a win to become bowl eligible 7 times in the past 12 seasons and has won all 7 games. That's pretty cool. I don't like that is the reality, that's what we've needed 7 out of 12 years, but I do like the fact that it's true dominance over little brother every single post-Thanksgiving Friday or Saturday celebration.
Couple quick hitters on the end of the season. This one is actually painful to hear. So Virginia Tech finishes 9th in the ACC, but finishes 26th in S&P Plus. Nobody loves the Hokies more than S&P Plus. They absolutely love Virginia Tech.
It's like the Harris poll in 2007 when 2007, probably the best college football season ever, and Virginia Tech finished number 1 in the computers that year. So computers always favor the Hokies for some reason, even though we had 2 losses and then lost to Kansas in a bowl game.
All losses, as you said, for Virginia Tech came against bowl teams. 10 wins, Miami, 9 wins, Clemson and Syracuse. Pretty sneaky that Syracuse finished this year with 9 wins. 7 wins, Rutgers and Georgia Tech. 6 wins, Vanderbilt. Good luck finding a better 6-win team in the country than Vanderbilt. They were fantastic.
I want to play Vandy in the bowl game.
It's so interesting, right? With this bowl season, the projections are crazy. Like, I've heard Gasparilla Bowl against Florida I think that would be a very unfun exercise. We have the Fenway Bowl, potentially against Tulane. I would go to that, more than likely. And not go to the Military Bowl because you can't double dip. Pinstripe Bowl is out there. I don't know what's going to happen. I got to be honest with you, Pat. I really don't care. I think people are not prepared for how ugly these bowl games are going to be now with the 12-team playoff, because I think the 12-team playoff is going to be awesome. Not really a lot of people are going to care about the bowl games. But if it is in Fenway, I will more than likely be there with bells on. That would, I mean, be awesome for me personally. Other than that, like, to just put a bow on this, it is so fun to beat the hell out of these guys. It really is. It has to be so embarrassing to just take it every year like this. I didn't think that this would make me feel any better. It doesn't change my opinion on the outlook and the fact that changes need to be made. But I am glad that the cup is staying in Blacksburg. I'm kind of getting sick of calling this a rivalry, because it's not. And that seems like a backhanded chirp. It just isn't. Like, you go around and you look at some of these games, like, people are crushing Ohio State for losing 4 in a row to Michigan. And it's like, brother, you don't have, like, you're not even, you multiplied the amount of times that you lost by 3, you wouldn't be in the same neighborhood that UVA was in pre-2019. And they've won once since that point. It's got to be so embarrassing. It really does.
Letters from the lunch pail.
It's
Where
empty.
are they? Empty mailbox after beating UVA? Was the season that bad?
It was pretty bad.
It was. Damn.
It was pretty bad. It was.
Move on to Sharky shoutouts. Billy Ray, who are your shoutouts?
I just got to say, the guy or girl in the gobbler costume, the tall neck gobbler costume, excellent work. I saw a lot of those, like, plushable, hokey bird costume, like, garments, like night garments, that were really funny. Some of the outfits were really, really funny. And sincerely, shout out to everybody that showed up to the game. Crowd was great. I think it had a huge impact. Looked awesome on TV. So shout out to everybody that bundled up and got out there.
Shout outs to the women's soccer team. Proud of them.
Yes.
They did fall to Duke 1-0 on Saturday night in the Elite Eight. They had a great run as a 7 seed, making it all the way to the Elite Eight. Representing the ACC well, 6 out of 8 teams in the Elite Eight are from the Atlantic Coast Conference. And tip your cap to Coach Chugger. And the girls also want to dive in deeper here on Megan Duffy and the women's basketball team. They have, who's that coming down the track? The Georgia Bulldogs on Wednesday this week. Georgia Hokies should go to Georgia on Wednesday at 5 p.m. They also have Duke in Cameron on Sunday at 4 o'clock. So it should be an exciting week for the Virginia Tech women's basketball team. Shane Beamer, so fun to watch. I know I like rooting for Shane. I don't think Shane ever would have been our head coach at any point. I think in a parallel universe that happens. I don't think it ever happens in this universe. There was never going to be a moment where he would say, hey, let me just go ahead and try to continue to build onto this family legacy. Like, I think if you really think that Shane Beamer would have accepted that job, I have some oceanfront property in Scottsdale. Like,
I think he absolutely would have accepted the job. I think that's a crazy take by you. I think he would have accepted the job. I think the timeline of when he would have gotten a job like that didn't line up to when we had an opening. I think he would have accepted the job. I just don't think that the timelines worked out.
I think, yes, maybe offering him the job before he goes and takes it at South Carolina. But if you want to have a hindsight approach to this, it's Shane had not ever been a head coach. South Carolina took a massive gamble on him, putting him in that position. And during his first few years where there were some struggles, even last season where there were some struggles, I know that much of our fan base was almost rooting against him. But even going to South Carolina and, winning 9 games this year and being a fringe playoff team, they might get in. There's no universe where, a coach goes from South Carolina to Virginia Tech. At least not in this universe, right? Maybe in 2010, but not in 2024, unfortunately. That said, I am rooting for him. I am excited every single time he wins a football game. I like watching the press conferences. He's so invested in his players. He loves the fan base, and he's just a good guy. So shout out to him and his team for beating Dabo and Clemson. Also, just saw a couple things. Dajuan Lofton is in the portal. Had 6 catches for 140 yards at Oklahoma State this season. So just thought that was interesting. And during my wormhole of looking up his stats, I also wanted to see how Daquan Wright was doing. Had 9 catches for 99 yards and 2 scores versus Arkansas earlier in November, and has 24 catches and 321 yards with 3 touchdowns on the year. So he has been contributing. Will we see Ole Miss in the playoff, Billy Ray? What do you think?
I don't know. I think we're going to do something on this later on this week. I think that the ACC is in a pretty bad spot. I think they're in a spot where they could potentially end up with 1 when we were thinking we might get 2 or 3. The SMU Clemson game is probably the most impactful conference championship game that there is. And they kind of hold the keys to the SEC getting 1 more school in. So that's going to be really interesting to watch. I don't know. I don't really know what's changed between Alabama and Ole Miss since Ole Miss was ranked ahead of them. We were going at this in the group chat the other day at a pretty deep level. But it's going to be fun, man. I'm telling you, conference championship weekend is going to be great. Army Navy is going to be great. The playoff is going to be great. And as long as we can get I don't even know what I'm wishing for out of these bowl games, like the other bowl games. Like if we can get 1 good one every 3 days, I think that's a reasonable expectation, just because there are going to be people playing these games. You're like, I have no idea who this guy is. So we'll see.
You had tickets. You had a flight to go to Indiana this weekend for the Big Ten championship game. Plans have fallen through because of Ryan Day, and those plans are no longer intact. We know you went to LSU this year to watch a great football game. If you stumble upon some tickets Saturday night, will you go to the Clemson SMU ACC championship?
I think I would. I actually was thinking about this yesterday. If I had tickets, I would probably go. I do think that Miami SMU would have been more compelling of a game. I haven't really decided who I want to win. I just think SMU and Miami would have been a shootout of epic proportions. I would go. For 10 seconds, I thought I would still go to the Big Ten championship, but I'm not going to go by myself. That's diabolical decision-making. But yeah, was supposed to go to the Big Ten championship. Ohio State family was going to be fun. Am no longer going. Kind of a bummer, but what can you do? What can you do? Can't really relate to losing to your rival, and it just hasn't happened.
Damn.
So,
Casey, if you're listening, thoughts and prayers go out to the Ohio State Buckeyes and their faithful. He did say in the group chat that this is his lowest point ever as a fan. Did you see that?
I called him after the game was over, and was like, "Hey man, are you okay?" Because he's called me plenty of times this year. He's called me 5 or 6 times this year following losses. So I checked in on him. I go, "Yo, how are you doing?" He goes, "I didn't play." I was like, "Yeah, I know. How you doing?" He goes, "I didn't coach either." It's like, I know. How are you? He goes, "I'm fine." I said, "Okay, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm laying in bed in the dark watching Indiana." I was like, "Okay, so you're not doing fine. I'll call you later." Hard to feel bad for him, though, because they are still going to the playoff. I don't know what you do with Ryan Day. Losing 4 in a row is crazy. Not as crazy as losing however many UVA has lost in a row, or out of 20. So that's a podcast. Again, I had this jar of excitement, right? It was about this big. I opened it up, let it out on this podcast. We still have to talk about the suitcase of the rest of the year that we have to dive into before we get into next year. So I enjoyed talking about this, but there are some other things to talk about. Just wasn't the time or place.
So if you've made it this far in the podcast, we're about an hour in. I want you to comment below baggage, because we're going to unpack some of the baggage after championship weekend as we turn the page to 2025.
Enjoy your victory Sunday, Patrick. Enjoy your victory Sunday, everybody else, or whatever day it is. Because
It's literally Monday.
That's right. Victory Monday. Enjoy your victory, whatever day it is, because we have it for another 364 days, or however many days it is until we play them again. Until next time, BRM Mitchell, Pat Finn, Sons of Saturday, beat whoever we're playing next.